All right, welcome to another edition of the New York Power Hour here on Best Damn Sports. I'm Ash, your host for the evening, and tonight joining me, as always, is Peter, our own baby squid, and then we've got the Prince Man himself joining us once again. Ram, my man, boys, how are you doing tonight? I will go straight from the top, just as I told you guys back off stage before we went live. I didn't watch a single play of the Super Bowl. Once the Buffalo Bills, the only team in the state of New York get eliminated, I tend to lose interest in the NFL playoffs.
We've been
So
over this. We've been
I
over
didn't
this.
watch.
They've renounced their New York status
I don't
when
think
they
so.
wished. Yes, when they wished the Blue Jays
They are the
and
Empire
Toronto good
State
luck.
team, and I will stick to that.
Well, then
Ram,
why
did
did
you
they root
watch the
for
game at
Toronto
all? Or?
over the Yankees?
I mean, Buffalo is definitely more of a Canadian thing because they like the Blue Jays and all that. But I did watch the Super Bowl, but honestly, I mean, all it did was prove to me that God still exists. Patriots lost, things are good. Drake the schedule made did not win, but we don't need to spend any time talking about it because honestly, it doesn't matter in New York sports. I don't mean
I
that in
just
a
wanted to
crazy
kick the
way.
can out of the way right from the jump.
Yeah,
So
like I could laugh. I mean, if you want to see me laugh for 60 straight minutes because Drake May lost, I can do it, but I don't think it'll get us any viewers. But I could do it because I thought it was really funny. But putting that aside, I mean, there's other things for me to laugh about that are relevant to New York sports, and I think we can do that instead. I think that keeps us all in the discussion, and that's where
Well,
we want to be.
before we get to the laughing part, we do have some concerning news on the Mets front. I think we should get this out of the way first.
yeah, I
It was
think it's
announced.
important. I mean, this was kind of recent news, so we need to get on that. And by the way,
Yeah.
speaking of baseball, I have the weirdest look going on right now. I've got the Braves hoodie with the Reds hat, and over here I've got a signed Reggie Jackson Yankees plaque, and then I've got a Doc Gooden jersey behind me. So it's like,
I mean,
Well, I'm
Reggie
a.
and Doc qualify you for the podcast. I think that makes it okay. I think that's why we
yeah.
allow you on here, right?
Yeah. So
All right, so
anyway,
talk to
it
me,
was.
Doc. Yeah, teach me a little something here about this bone
Professor Peter, here we go.
Yes.
and why this is now sweeping the league and getting some of the favorite players out.
So, believe it or not, I actually did a little bit of research. I talked to an actual doctor about um, this bone and a little bit of what it does. So, what it does, if they call it like honestly, they call it kind of a hook, and it hooks a lot of the ligaments in there, kind of keeping them together and tight. So when it breaks, usually what they do is they just straight up remove the bone. The issue with that is when you do that, you lose a lot of your grip strength, which is why players will, while it is a pretty tight 6 week window, like you're gonna come back pretty confidently in 6 weeks, you lose your power for a couple months, if not the whole year. Now, the one advantage that Francisco Lindor has is that he is a switch hitter, so it will not affect both sides of the plate, just one. Um, so while David Stearns did say he was confident in his press conference, although for me he said he was confident a little too much, it almost made me like he was trying to make himself believe he was confident. But if Taylor for taking him at his word, Lindor should be back for opening day, if not very close to it. So um, hopefully it ends up not being that big of a deal. But this could also explain why he's not playing for Team Puerto Rico with the why he wouldn't get the insurance for it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to you about that a little bit earlier. That was my first thought that maybe, he's played through a lot of little bang up little injuries and things like that. So it's very viable that, excuse me, that it's part of the reason he couldn't get the insurance. That he is coming in with a pre-existing injury, and he didn't just hurt it overnight. This is something they might have been reviewing and hoping to avoid, and then they went ahead and said, "All right, screw it, we're going to knock it out." The primary fear here, of course, is as you mentioned, the recovery time is pretty straightforward. But a lot of hitters have talked about the fact they feel they just don't get their power back. And this is a guy who was teetering on 30-30 for us, at least over the span of the whole season. So you might just objectively say that we're probably going to see a down season from Lindor. And one thing I will say that sucks about this more than the obvious on the surface is that probably the one thing that I was a little upset about, more sentimentally than otherwise, really, with the Mets is that we didn't keep Alonso. And I do think that I know it's a little bit of a traditionalist and maybe an old school take here, but I feel like we're going to see a lack of power in this Mets rotation even more so because if Lindor's not hitting 30 and you don't have Pete Alonso and you didn't get a big bat to come in and really add power to this lineup, I'm not saying they're not going to score runs, mind you, but I do feel like you're going to have to hope that they just keep the conga line moving and have a lot of big innings to score runs, because this was a team that was very home run focused, and we just might not see that looking ahead to what the lineup the Mets have built for this year.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely a concern. I personally believe while they're not going to have a lot of guys like in the 30-40 range, I think they'll have a lot of guys in the 25 range. If you have enough of those, the maths and it all equates to about the same. As far as Lindor for down season, I do slightly disagree with that. Well, yes, I believe his home run numbers are going to be down. I think the rest of the stats should pretty much align up where they normally do. So for him, his performance wise, I'm not super concerned about it. If anything, because Lindor likes to get off to slow starts, so they say, he's a built-in excuse now. So there you go. Good for you.
I don't know. I mean, and I don't know if it's going to be one of those things where, like, because I think of if it was last season or maybe the one before where he didn't get off to a slow start, he actually played really well and he did like a reverse Lindor, according to the stories, where he played better in the first half than the second. I am slightly concerned about the lack of power, and I say that because I feel like it's fair to be honest about the fact that Jorge Polanco is probably batting cleanup. I think they mentioned that, and they talked about he's going to be the one batting cleanup. So if Jorge Polanco is batting cleanup, I mean that's not a traditional cleanup hitter. Do I think Polanco's a good hitter? Yes, he's above average. He will do the job, but I guess sometimes it's hard for me to wrap my head around the idea of like what we're doing in terms of the offensive lineup, because I'm expected to have like a big bopper in the middle, and I'm not saying Juan Soto should bat cleanup. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm saying that I do feel like we are missing a significant source of power. I mean, you traded Nimmo for Simeon. That's still a loss of power, even if like Simeon's a better defender. Fine, you're replacing Alonso with Jorge Polanco, which is a significant loss of power. Right, and I mean, yes, you're hoping that Luis Robert can look like the guy from years past, and we'll touch on this a little bit later because I know you want to talk about the projected lineups, Peter, and talking about like what the opening day lineup is going to look like. But I am a little bit worried about whether they're going to have enough power to compete if they're scoring runs
Exactly.
anyway. It's just I get that there's other ways to score runs in today's game. I know that it's not all the big boppers, but I feel like if Lindor does show any complications from the surgery, right, then we're really going to be feeling that lack of Pete Alonso in the lineup. And no matter if you put together a really strong, cohesive team, there's going to be a difference when you remove a bat of that quality without a significant replacement. I'm not saying they're not going to score runs. I'm not trying to say anything crazy, but I'm saying that it's very possible that we're going to notice not having that big guy in the middle of the lineup. You know, outside of Soto, I mean, you don't have a 40 home run bat in this lineup, not even close, right? And Soto himself fell
There's a
short
lot
of
of
that
question
mark.
marks about the power.
Yeah, like I'm glad he was able to do it. He fell short of the 40-40 season, but he gave us the 40 home runs. Great. But that season was him and Alonso, and it also allowed Alonso to have one of his better seasons in a while because he had Soto in the lineup. I don't are you for me, I feel like this is starting to shine up like you're going to see Soto walk 150 times and they're just going to say screw it, we'll pitch to Jorge Polanco. And that's
And oh,
not an
by the way,
insult to Jorge
Lindor hit
Polanco.
30 last year, so it's not
Well,
like,
you know what?
I mean, you need that 30 home run bat.
Let's just get into it now since we're already kind of talking about lineup stuff. Let me pop this up here. Wrong one.
That's
You didn't see
rotation.
that. So right now it says
I love Peter.
right now it says that Bo Bichette's gonna bat third and Polanco bat fourth. I mean,
Right.
it's just a projection. Fangraphs usually pretty good at this stuff, but honestly, I think to me the key here is Francisco Alvarez. He had a whole bunch of injuries, one of them being the same one that Lindor's dealing with. So if he can have that close to 30 home run season that he was on pace to having his rookie year, when you add, for the 162 game pace, that's where that power is going to come from. If Luis Roberts, if everyone was correct that he was truly just disinterested in playing with the White Sox and his power comes back, if If Brett can give you somewhere between 20, 25 home runs, same thing with Polanco. Simeon, if he can get you around the 20 mark, Bo Bichette, again, 2025. Like, I think we're going to be okay in that regard. We have seen plenty of teams not win, being heavy home run hitters. If anything, that can be kind of a downside. I mean, look at the Yankees. Everyone talks about how they're a home run team. Well, great. When the home runs stop coming, they struggle, and it happened to us last year. We were the second half of the season. We were entirely dependent on the home run ball. We couldn't string any hits together. But they have an entirely different lineup they do last year. So, yeah, I'm not gonna totally disagree and say that it isn't necessarily a cause for concern, but I'm confident in the lineup that David Stearns put together.
This is also a team. The reason that I have this fear, I think, is that this is a team that was, I think, top 10 in runs, maybe, but I believe they were top 5 in home runs last year. I think they were top 5 in home runs as a team. And so I don't really, at the end of the day, I mean, they were struggling to hit with runners in scoring position. It might have been more of a culture issue than anything else, right? A coaching issue, sure, whatever we want to call it. But if you're top 5 in the league in home runs, that's a good thing to me, obviously. And if it leads to you being top 10, I know there was a lot of solo home runs, fine. I know that Soto carried a lot of those numbers, also fine. But I do think that there is going to be, let's break down some numbers here because I'm going to bring it up. Yes, the Mets were 5th last year in the MLB in home runs, right? And so they had 224 home runs. So if you had 224 team home runs, if we're looking here let's average out, right? If you're getting 20 from Lindor, if you're getting 40 from Soto, we'll estimate a little higher on him and give him what he got last year, right? I'm going to bust out the calculator and see what we're looking at. So before I say something crazy, I want to make sure I got some math in place.
Well, so while you're doing that, you want me to look up their projected stats?
If you want, yeah. If you want to, let's go for let's do some math here and let's figure out. Let's see what they're going to finish at home run wise. And if it's in the ballpark of last year, it's not the end of the world, right?
Right, but this was a team that missed the playoffs.
Yes, but it's also
I hate to beat the dead horse here, but Marcus Semien is clearly in decline. He was an 89 WRC plus player last year, entering his age 35 season.
Mm-hmm.
Luis Robert was bad the last couple of years. I do think Francisco Alvarez is going to come back, and I think he's going to be a 25 home run bat this year. I feel very strongly that he's going to be the guy that you saw 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
He's one of my favorite young catchers in the league. Brett Beatty, I think, is a solid piece. I think you got a guy here that can hit approximately 20 home runs a year. Maybe put up 25 doubles a year. That's kind of like my personal projection for him. So I think that with those two young guys, there's that's a bright spot. But I am totally out on Marcus Semien. I think this is a guy that's clearly in decline. You've got the question mark with Lindor for this year. Carson Bench is kind of the wild card. He didn't really impress in his 100-game stint in AAA last year, but that is a small sample size. And, he's an exciting young player. So could he break camp with the team and be one of those guys that, breaks through with a rookie of the year type campaign? I think that the potential is there. I think the biggest wild card when I look up and down, this roster is Mark Vientos. And I have beat the drum on him so hard over the last year. He is a guy that swings and misses way too much. His swinging strike rate is around 16 when the league average is around 11. So that's swinging and missing way too much. But he was like that 2 years ago. So if he can bounce back to the guy that he was 2 years ago, maybe you don't miss Pete Alonso as much. Maybe that offsets a little bit of the power loss that you see with Francisco Lindor this year. But I feel like this is a roster that's got to go get another piece. There's so much young talent in that farm system. They've got to go get another bat. There's just not enough power in this that I can, that doesn't have major question marks. in this lineup right now. And
Yeah,
by the
it's
way,
the question marks
why
that I
not
agree
move
with.
Juan Soto to first base?
Well, they're something that we may touch on later, but they're moving Juan Soto to left field, which they feel is actually going to help him in the long term defensively. He has played left before. He was doing left for the World Baseball Classic. He was kind of prepping there, and he had a conversation. It seems like willingly went to Mendoza and had an open conversation and said, "Hey, I'd be willing to play left field." And he's got less ground to cover in City Field for left field, so I'm okay with that. I actually think that's a fine move because I like that specifically for Juan Soto. It seems to be what he wants. I still feel weird about the idea that we've got Jorge Polanco at first base. I know the Mets are confident partially because they got Kai Correa from the Giants as a coach, and they feel like he is an infield wizard. He taught JD Davis how to play a decent third base with the Giants. Pretty much everybody says that he's a really, really strong infield coach. So they're less concerned about their infield alignment than I am, which I don't know how I feel about that. I've been wrong about things. I've been right about things. We're going to find out pretty early into the season whether or not it's going to tick me off, right? But I am nerved about this because there is a lot of wild cards here. Even Benj, even though he's probably going to be an above average hitter, he's not a power hitter, right? He is a either leadoff or like bottom of the order type of guy. And I have this fear that these guys just aren't going to produce the same amount of power that they had before. And yes, again, you can score runs other ways, but I get nervous, you know? And I mean, look, Mark Vientos is actually, you're 100% right that he is a huge question mark here because Mark Vientos was showing 30 plus home run power, right? And if Brett Beatty can give you close to 20, I mean, if you're getting 40 home runs from the DH platoon of Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos, then you're going to figure things out and you're going to be fine. But there's so much to worry about there because Brett Beatty had the strongest stretch of his career. We don't know if he's going to run into a decline the way Mark Vientos did. And
How
Mark
dare you?
Vientos flashed potential, but he's obviously a huge question mark too. So the entire GH position is kind of hopes and dreams. And there's something to work with there. It's not nothing. It's not an empty spot. And the upside is there. But there also could very well be nothing out of that spot. And that could be terrifying.
So, uh, Ash, to kick back on something you commented on earlier, talking about Luis Roberts, specifically. Yeah, he might not. We might not see that what we saw in his MVP ish campaign, where he got some votes and some love. But like, he's a huge upgrade over Tyron Taylor, even if he's at his basement.
I agree with that.
And also, Ram, I feel like you're forgetting something. This is a David Stearns run team. He's not going to sit pat and sit on his hands and do nothing. If the Mets truly need a power bat with the plethora of options we have in AAA and in the minors in general, he'll make a trade and we'll get that power bat. Who that is, we don't know. Baseball season hasn't even started yet, but if it's a need and we're in the thick of a playoff fight, we'll get that guy.
I I haven't seen it yet to say that for sure. I mean, I've watched Brewers teams in the past sell off in a playoff run because they're working for the future. I haven't watched them go all in on a team. I
That
know it's the truth. If you trade Josh Hader, who I don't even like, right? But if you trade Josh Hader in a playoff run, that's your way of running the team. I get it. Like, you're not going all in. You're looking for, like, a multiple. And I respect that because I myself have said openly on this pod and outside of this pod that the goal is, like, a dynasty type effort. You want multiple competitive years. So I respect that, right? But I think that this roster was constructed with flexibility and very minimal long-term commitments outside of the guys that were there from before, like Lindor and Soto. And they tried to do as much as they could for short-term versatility and not any real commitments. And that doesn't scream all into me. That doesn't scream to me that we're at the deadline and he's going to start moving prospects. It screams he's going to hope the prospects come up and figure it out. And look, there are some guys that might, right? I like Ryan Clifford. You like him more than me. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, the Mets
Yeah.
like Ryan Clifford more than I like Ryan Clifford, too. He's a power bat. He might come up and play first base. That might be their plan where they're like, listen, Polanco's eventually going to move back into the infield. Ryan Clifford will play first base. We just need 1 year at first. We'll figure it out, right? That type of thing. And it could be the same with the rotation. I'm not against all of it. I just get nervous because I've said this a lot. David Stearns operates like he's the smartest guy in the room, and sometimes he is. But I don't know if he's always the smartest guy in the room, and sometimes I get nervous because there's a big range of outcomes here. I mean, everything in this lineup, right? If you go up and down, and I'm going to take Juan Soto out of it because Juan Soto is as close to God as you're going to get in baseball. So Lindor might be running with limited power. Bichette's playing a new position, and he has had some really down years where his willingness to swing the bat too much has overexposed him, and he's had really at one point he was one of the worst hitters in MLB. I'm not saying he's going to be, but I'm saying that he's had moments where he was a true negative, right? Jorge Polanco is also playing a new position, who is also again a guy who was shown to be streaky and not necessarily a guarantee for those numbers. Marcus Simeon, even at his peak, he's now 35. He's going to be he's still in decline, right? We can't count on Beatty and Vientos yet. Alvarez, I believe in his upside too, but there's a negative there too. And the idea that he might just be a guy that I think he's better than who he is. I think he's a 25-30 home run bat. I'm a huge Alvarez guy, right? But I have to accept the outcome that might be a big loss too. And Luis Robert has played like ass. And maybe he won't play like ass, but we got question marks all the way down the lineup. As much as I have moments to feel confident, if I was a negative Nelly, I could sit there and be like, what the hell are we throwing out there outside of Juan Soto, right? And again, I love Lindor, but it's more of the injury than it is an attack on Lindor, to be fair. But there's fear and that kind of stuff. Mauricio hasn't proven he can do anything with a glove and arguably anything with a bat. Tyrone Taylor can field, but he's a fourth outfielder at best, right? So we're looking right here. I mean, this could be a 99 win team, or this could be a 72 win team. We actually don't know. There's a lot
of fear.
Yeah, and I think it's reasonable to express the fact that and I don't think this is about you being right or me being right or us being wrong here, right? I just think that I'm a little nerved because I think the way this was constructed, everything had to go really well. We needed Bench to Bench is penciled in right now into the opening day lineup, and he could hit for 97 in spring training, and we're sending Tyrone Taylor out there. Right? I mean, granted, yes, we have MJ Melendez, who I like. Maybe MJ Melendez starts up there until Benj is ready. It's a contingency plan. I get it. Right? I'm not saying that, no, Brett Beatty should not be in the outfield on a horse. But I do think, I respect the fact that there's contingency plans. I want to give credit to the MJ Melendez signing. I liked MJ Melendez a lot as a former top prospect. I think that a guy who can play catcher and outfield and has the potential to hit for power is a good bench signing for under $2 million with incentives that bring him up to only $2 million. Great signing. Love that. Mm-hmm. That might be the backup plan if Bench doesn't play right off the bat, right? So it's not like they're sitting there and saying, hey, fuck it, we're just going to figure it out. They are planning for things. I respect it. But I am nerved, right? Because even Polanco, I mean, who's been a good bat in the past, he's also getting out of his prime. You see, he's aging up towards 33. 27 to 32 is the traditional prime. There's some reason for worry here. And, I mean, I feel like it's going to be one of those things, man. When the Mets are going, they're going to be going great. And when they look bad, they're going to look like one of the worst teams in the league because everything's going to go wrong at once. Right? Well, and so I'm nerved.
Like you said, the Mets have a lot of flexibility, and that's as the roster looks right now, without even by what we're looking on this projected lineup. Yeah, Jorge Polanco is 32, and Marcus Simeon is 35, but they don't have to play every day, or they don't, or Polanco can get a day as a DH. If Vientos can prove in spring training that he can play first base, he'll get more playing time. Melendez can also play some first base. He's done that a little bit. I don't expect him to be much of a catcher. If anything, the Mets got a replacement emergency catcher now that they traded off Jeff McNeil. I mean, I'll never forget the show me and Luke did when the Nimmo trade went down, and he was talking about how it's in a vacuum, it's a decent trade, but until you need to see the other pieces put together. For me, and this is partly why I'm so high on Ryan Clifford, I believe Ryan Clifford's a huge piece of this puzzle. Because yes, why are you starting Polanco at first base? He has never played first base before, and he's 32 years old. It's a weird signing. It's a nice player to have, but it's a weird signing if you don't have a first baseman. So for me, my thought is they expect to call him up at some point. He will be your first baseman, and then you just have another player that you can throw in this merry-go-round of players. Because even going looking at the bench, I don't expect Ronnie Mauricio to be on the opening day roster. He still has an option left. The Mets want him to play every day to either see if he can play or just hopefully he has good numbers. They use him as a trade chip. So that's probably going to be Melendez's spot if I were a betting man. Um, so like again, you could be right and I could be wrong and I could be overly positive, and which is it's never good. To be fair, it's never good that a Mets fan's overly positive, but like I see the vision here, and I really do hope it works out, but I very much think it will.
Now, let me ask you something here too. Do you think if Bo Bichette has an above average year, that he basically signed this deal with the Mets as a 1 year deal just to cash in on some money, and that he's going to hit the market again? And the Mets are hoping then Polanco moves to third, where he's played before, subpar defensively, but he's played third before, right? And then they just slot Clifford at first. Do you? Because you said you're a Clifford guy, and I respect that because I understand why. Do you think that's part of it? Because if you're high on Ryan Clifford, would you expect that Bo Bichette's only
Well,
here on a 1 year deal?
here's a couple things. Number one, Bo Bichette, yes, he can opt out, but the Mets can offer to pay him $5 more million, and he can't opt out. It's a lot of money to pay him. I don't know if they will. We'll see. Uh, right now, as it's penciled in, so let's sure for the thought exercise, let's pretend Bo Bichette opts out and the Mets don't give him the $5 million. You have a player that's a very good third baseman there playing DH. If he proves that he can hit this year, there's your third baseman.
I mean, you're looking at a guy that had a 134 WRC plus last year, which is the highest it's been in his career for a full season. He had 44 doubles, which was the career high. Yeah, the home run total was just 18. So that's a little light for a third baseman. But like this is a bat that was really good last year. And I thought this was kind of a home run signing for the Mets. I really like what Bichette put together coming back last year and kind of rebounding from that injury plagued 2024 season. I mean, if he can hit you 44 doubles again this year, that's a good bat. Like,
And look what he
you
did to
pay
the
him the
Dodgers.
extra money to keep him.
I'm excited to have Bo Bichette in the blue and orange. I have to be honest. I mean, I follow the Blue Jays a lot because Vlad Guerrero Jr. is my favorite player outside of the Mets, mainly because he hates the Yankees. But I follow the Blue Jays a lot, and I've watched Bichette for a long time. You know, I watched the Blue Jays over the years where they had Kevon Biggio, Bichette, and Guerrero in the lineup, so they were kind of piling up like the sons of former major league players. And I'm like, this is kind of cool. I actually enjoyed that a lot. It was fun for me. And I've seen like Bichette. I remember a couple years back. I mean, he was almost a 30-30 guy. I think he had like almost 30 home runs and 25 steals. He was racking it up, and his ISO was strong. His ISO numbers look pretty good last year too, to the point where I'm like, you know what, this is definitely a guy that could be at least a menace with the bat, and I look forward to it. I'm not. I have to double check on that opt out, by the way, because I read a million times. I heard the same thing you said about the 5 million thing, but I saw it was kind of confusing. I'm like, I don't know exactly how that works. Where he has opt outs after the first two seasons, but he can be paid five more after the first one only. I'm not 100% sure. I have to be clear. I'm gonna see if I can find it on like Spot Rack or something like that. But I do think that again, like flexibility was the big thing for them. Like they wanted to keep their options open if Clifford is good. And if not, maybe they'll go find somebody else and they think so. They didn't want to do a long term commitment for Pete, even though he was the better player at first. Fine. I get it. The new move is flexibility. I just I hope it works. I'm not down on Stearns, quite the opposite. Going into this offseason when shit looked really bad, I remember sitting here on the pod and saying, like, hey, things are going to be all right. Give him the offseason. I'm like, I don't know exactly the move. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but give him the offseason, right? And this looks like a much more complete team. And we can switch over to the rotation in a second, too, since we're talking about the completeness of the team, right? Because that was a big deal. I just, some of these moves for me, I know that they don't want to do long-term commitments, but I like the Peralta deal a lot more if we get a commitment out of Peralta. And we're not going to get that right now. It's very clear to me, right? But I think it's a good deal. I just feel like, hey, at the end of the day, getting Peralta long-term is the move. I mean, we are not necessarily favorites over the Dodgers right now. So, I mean, are you giving up?
You got to make the playoffs. Come on.
Right, that's what I mean. Like, so why are you making a win-now move in that regard? if you're not going to commit to him for the future, I mean, 3 or 4 years, I guess team friendly won't work out for a guy like Freddie Peralta, but we are also trading for a career year. So I have my nerves, is what I mean. And I like it. I think it'll be fun for the product this year. And granted, like, again, I didn't realize they slotted Luis Garcia into our opening day rotation. I don't agree with that. I usually almost always agree with roster resource. I
That's
think
no, that's the bullpen.
no, I see in the bullpen. I think it should be Dylan Ross. I think it's going to be somebody like that, like one of those flamethrowers they have down there. Um, I see the 6-man rotation up there. I think I just misspoke, but Luis Garcia being in the pen is an interesting one for me because I don't think he'll make it in there. I think the young guys will be there, and I also think AJ Minter has a better shot of making it than Brian Hudson. But
Yeah, but
that's a little
AJ Minter's, I don't think he's gonna be ready to the start of the season.
yeah, so that might be Brian Hudson until AJ Minter comes in, type of thing.
Mhm.
That's fair. I know Brazaban being 36 and still being an arbitration guy is hilarious to me. I have
Well,
to.
that's because the relievers actually get totally screwed with service time by the
They
sending
do.
them down
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
everything.
And Brazaban was like that kind of guy for the Mets last year too. Like they bounced him back and forth, taxi squatted his ass. They did whatever they could. I will say I can't be as mad about the Freddie Peralta thing because they get Tobias Myers. Speaking of service time, that was a brilliant add-in to this because Tobias Myers had looked to be a replacement level starting pitcher for a long time for the Milwaukee Brewers. Now he's our swingman, and we have years of control off him. So I can't be too mad about the deal, even if Peralta walks. So it's still overall a good move. But
And
There's just so much riding on Devin Williams turning back into the
yeah,
guy that he was in
yeah,
that's
Milwaukee.
exactly what I was going to say. The one thing about this bullpen is that, again, David Stearns likes to be the smartest guy in the room. If Devin Williams turns back into the guy from Milwaukee, this is a formidable bullpen, right? You've got Rayleigh and Weaver as setup guys. I think it'll be Ross over Garcia, Brazaban, Hudson, Myers. Fine, you got options. You'll have Minter in there. You've got some young arms coming up who can fireball. You will figure this out. The bridge to the end will work, but will the journey be worth it if Devin Williams sucks ass? And that's what it comes down to. If Devin Williams is going to be good, then you got an amazing bullpen and you got him at a discount, right? Because you bought him cheap. That could be really cool. If not, oh man, this bullpen's going to suck. However, to the thought that Peter said before, I will say that I do feel confident at least because I've physically seen it happen, but I also think it's easier to acquire. If for some reason Devin Williams is complete ass by like the All-Star break, I do think he'll go out and get another reliever to close. That's fine. I'm not too panicked about that. Maybe Luke Weaver will close. I think we have options inherently there. The rotation is going to be interesting because there has not been enough talk about the fact that the Mets are kind of going out there with a 6-man rotation. And it's listed on roster resource, but it seems to be that that's the plan, right? And there's a lot of question marks there, but you're not moving any of these guys to the pen. Clay Holmes showed you that he can give you 5 successful innings just about every time out. Sean Manaea had really good numbers when he wasn't injured, and Kodai Senga too. David Peterson got a little burned out towards the end of last year, but he's not maybe even the 3 here. He could definitely be slotted down a little more, and Holmes maybe all the way at the end. But there's some work to be done here, but the rotation being a 6-man is interesting because I guess on paper the hope, and Peter, I don't know if you have the same hope, is that if you look at these guys, Peterson, Holmes, Manaea, and Senga, made of glass are not very durable overall, right? The hope is that the 6-man rotation allows them to pitch more successful innings deeper into the year, right? I
well,
assume that's part of the goal here.
I would hope so. We Ram, me and you talked before the show about also the Mets having a kind of fortuitous schedule. They're doing pretty much all of their West Coast trips
I
before
love that, by
May.
the way. Somebody did
So,
us a favor.
with West Coast trips means days off. So you're gonna have a lot of rest for these pitchers in the beginning. Honestly, I do expect to see Tobias Myers probably in a lot of those swingman roles, maybe even spot start here or there. But what I'm most excited about is the bullpen. Yes, more or less, this all rides on Devin Williams being good. Um, the Mets signed Craig Kimbrell. Obviously, I don't expect him to be the closer if Devin Williams fails as the Mets closer. But like he's an interesting name. He's a solid guy. Um, You have and you have what's his name? Alzolay,
Hmm.
who got
Adzale is also a guy that I very much think may make this opening day bullpen.
yeah, he's had a good. He played winter ball. He played really well coming off Tommy John's. If there's one thing that you can consistently say about David Stearns is the bullpen at the beginning of the year does not look like the bullpen at the end of the year. Um, so I think I, I'm very excited to see what he does with that. And we're also forgetting some huge pieces here. You got Jonah Tong, you got Christian Scott. We're going to
Yeah,
see him at some point.
I was gonna bring that up. I don't have the
Christian
pitching
Scott was
images.
my first thing when I'm looking at roster resource. There's no way he can be in AAA to start the year. This is a guy, in my opinion, that's a 2 or 3 starter.
I think he has to be in AAA. He hasn't seen live game time in a long time. Give him even if it's like 3 starts, give him something, just to get him back in the
Give him
rhythm.
long enough to figure out if Devin Williams is a bust. Because if Devin Williams is a bust, you got to, in my opinion, you move Clay Holmes back to the bullpen and you promote Christian Scott ASAP.
Yeah, so this is the it's not all AAA. It's more so their non-roster invitees to spring training. We're gonna see a lot of these names duke it out in spring training, including some guys from deeper into the Mets system like Douglas Oriana, who may or may not make it, but he is a top 30 prospect. Ryan Lambert also on there. Dylan Ross. I like they have the organizational ranks because they have some prospects on there, and I agree those are top 30 prospects for the Mets. But putting Lambert aside, maybe even Nate Lavender, who was a former top 30 reliever prospect for the Mets. Craig Kimball's there, as Peter mentioned.
He's
Adzule's there,
washed.
right?
He's
I
not
don't
an
think these are
option.
guys that'll make it. Even Joe Jocks, I think, is also like kind of camp fodder. I don't think these guys are going to make a difference. I do have a lot of faith in Dylan Ross. I do think that he's a guy that will break with the team. Adzale might, depending on how healthy he is, right? And I do think that at the end of the day, that there are maybe Hergert. Hergert breaks into. I don't know. I'm not necessarily losing my mind over the fourth reliever over there. But to speak on what you guys are talking about with the starting pitchers, because I do think it is a fair point to make. That starting six rotation is more than likely not what we're going to see throughout the year. I do think as we jump into these guys here, Jonah Tong is obviously going to be one of the first men up, if not Christian Scott. Right, Wenninger is going to be a non-roster invitee to camp, and it'll be nice to get an extended look at him. Will Watson and Jonathan Santucci are guys that I like in the Met system. I've talked about it before, but Scott and Tong are really interesting to me because if I can be confident in one thing, it's definitely the depth of pitching that we have. I feel very confident that one of those guys is going to work out. I was very much a fan of Christian Scott when he burst onto the scene, and he's been gone for a while, as Peter said. So it's true he's going to need some time in AAA. I don't think they're going to throw him right back out there. And weirdly enough, the Mets have not openly talked about the idea of experimenting and bringing Clay Holmes back to the bullpen. And it makes me wonder if that's something that ever does get discussed. Because we've never really heard about it. The Mets have been like, hey, Clay Holmes is a starter now. Because there is also the chance, outside of Devin Williams faltering, right? There's also the chance, realistically, that Clay Holmes' arm does not hold up this year. They baby gloved him last year. They did a good job to keep it safe and simple and not push him to do too much. Fine, but there's no guarantee that his arm actually holds up this year. It's very possible that
I mean, and Singa was inconsistent too at times.
yeah, he gets hurt. I definitely feel like they kept his depth there on purpose. Scott and Tong are going to sit there in AAA, and they're going to call one of them up depending on how they do. I think with Tong, especially because of how young he is, Tong and Scott saw about the same in the major leagues, but you look at Christian, he's almost 27. Jonah Tong isn't even 23 years old yet. I mean, he is constantly talked about the fact that he is the baby, but he is a very young human being, very successful, very young. And so he is going to be an interesting one to watch. A lot of people are really high on Tong and are under the impression that this is a guy that could be a difference maker. Some people think he has a higher ceiling than McLean. And I don't know how I feel about that because I do think there could be big relief risk, but I like the guy a lot, so I'm not
I was
concerned.
just, it's funny that you said reliever risk because I was just thinking, man, Jonah Tong could be a nasty ninth inning guy.
There is
I mean,
huge
that could be
reliever
some
risk because he
disgusting
could be
stuff.
like a la Joan Duran used to be and stuff type of thing. Like he could be converted into being a closer and be a very dominant closer. And I do think that with a lot of these guys too, you're gonna see some conversions. Like even Jonathan Santucci, who I like because he's a crafty lefty, you might see some of these guys just get converted to relievers, but they're gonna push them to start as long as they physically can, which makes sense. Obviously, if you think they have the potential, you do it. But you're going to see a lot of these names up this year. Maybe not the Justin Armbrusters of the world, who I didn't even know existed before earlier this morning. But, Christian Scott and Jonah Tong are going to pitch meaningful innings for the Mets this year. And my downside and my fear on the offense, I will say, is placated by my belief in that somehow on the side of pitching that we have, between looking at this staff and what's already in the major leagues, right? This is the rotation, right? Yes. I think they're going to figure it out on the pitching side. I'm calm on the pitching side.
I agree
I'm
with
just
that.
nervous about whether they're going to hit enough to be the team they're supposed to be.
Well, and
Yeah.
the thing that when I'm looking at this roster that actually is really exciting from a Mets perspective is even if, because I talked a lot of doom and gloom about that lineup, and then the bullpen is to me atrocious. But if you really think about it, if this comes down to a, worst possible outcome for the first 2 months, this is a team that you could retool real fast because suddenly maybe you think about, do we trade Freddie Peralta because we have so much young depth in this rotation already at the AAA level and at the major league level? You could deal Kodai Senga. You could deal, a couple of those bats to a contender and be immediately a contender in 2027. Like
I
it's
I,
not like
I
you're
think.
blowing it up,
hmm I think
but
that's part
like
of the
this is an
plan.
exciting situation to be in.
I agree with you that I do think openly because let's say arrow points up, right? And let's say you have serviceable, right now you have six serviceable to above average starters, if outcomes are good, in the rotation already, right? And if you go down to Tong and Scott, you could say at the ready, you have eight major league ready starters of differing talent level, but that's pretty impressive, right? You have a movable asset in that regard, and I do think that that's something that Stearns considers. Where I know they talked about trading Senga, and he personally asked to stay. I do think the Mets may try to honor that, but it's very possible a Sean Manaea or a Clay Holmes or something, you move them off to somebody and say, hey, you need to start at the back end of your rotation. Just give us another prospect, give us a comp pick or something like that, and we'll just keep adding. And then they'll bring up Tong and they'll bring up Scott, and I want to see the question pushed. I want to see AAA start and Tong is dominating and Scott is dominating, and they start talking about, are we going to bring up our homegrown guys, or are we going to see a rotation of, we talked about this at one point last year. There was the potential of McLean, Peterson, Scott, Tong, in the same rotation.
And I like Jack Winninger. I mean, I think that's a guy that could be a quality 4 or 5 pitcher in the big leagues.
Yeah, and he's been rising in the rankings. So at the end of it, I mean, if there's one thing I'm confident in, it's their pitching and their pitching development. I talk about this openly a lot, whether a lot it makes me look dumb. I think their pitching development is top of the line, and they know exactly what they're doing, and they're confident moving away certain pitchers. Because I said this when I believe they traded Jose Buto last year. They said, you know what, take Jose Buto. We're gonna make another one. We're going to be able to produce another one of these guys. We can make another Sprout if we wanted to. And they're moving with that type of confidence, and I respect that. I do. I have to, and I believe that they can do that. They're showing me pitching development wise that I can be confident in them.
Well,
And
I
if you have to flip Brian Clifford, like we mentioned him before, and what I've been impressed with him about is he has really cut down his strikeouts. Because if you'd have asked me about him a year ago, I was totally out on Ryan Clifford.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, he improved his strikeout rate by 4%, down to a much more manageable 25% K rate. So this is a guy that, in my opinion, I don't think that he's not gonna be an all-star caliber first baseman at the plate, but he could very well be one of those like maybe 10 to 12 guys as far as like first base rankings. And so he could be one of those guys that maybe you flip for another piece as you move along, and maybe you want to keep Polanco at first base, or down the road you envision maybe moving Soto to first base, so that way Ryan Clifford could be one of those pieces that you flip in a trade.
I think the
we'll
Mets
see.
the Mets view him as like that, like corner, like that first baseman that hits for a lot of power. Peter, what were you gonna say?
Well, no, you finish your thought because there is believe it or not there is another team in New York that we also have to talk about.
Yeah, well, go for it. Transition us over because you're right.
All
We
right.
should be fair and talk about the Yankees, even though Luke's not here.
Well, I think a good way to transition that is looking at both teams' uh, offseason moves. One was a little bit more active than the other. For the Yankees ad, we'll get that out of the way. They've added one Ryan Weathers. Uh, yes, I do not count re-signing your players. That is not an addition. They were already
I
there.
agree.
Is
The
so.
Mets,
I know we joked about this earlier, Peter. Right? Is Ryan
Mhm.
Weathers the only acquisition that they have like?
the
I know
only
that they re-signed their
non-roster,
guys. I know they
yeah.
kept Grisham. I know they kept Bellinger. I know Goldsmith is coming back, but did they not add anybody else?
I checked as I was making this graph on the Yankees transaction page for the last 3 months. This is the only non-roster or the minor league contractor non-roster invite that I saw. If I missed one, I apologize, Yankee fans, but this is the only one I saw. Um, so
That's wild to me.
One Ryan Weathers. That's it. The Mets added Freddie Peralta, Tobias Myers, Bo Bichette, Luis Robert Jr., Luke Weaver, Jorge Polanco, Devin Williams, MJ Melendez, and Marcus Simeon. The losses for the Yankees, you have Mark Leiter Jr., Jonathan Loizica, Luke Weaver, and Devin Williams. Wonder where they went. And for the Mets, there were more losses in this on both sides, but I just kind of picked the players that I thought were worth typing their name. Edwin Diaz, Pete Alonso, Tyler Rogers, Jesse Winker, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, and Luis Angel Acuna. So, with that in mind, here is the Yankees' projected lineup. Spoiler alert, it's the same as last year.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees are counting on their guys to do. They're counting on Aaron Judge to be Aaron Judge exactly the same way that they need him to be, and they're counting on Cody Bellinger to have not played his last great year last year, hoping that he can do what he did. Same thing with Ben Rice. They're hoping for health out of Stanton. They're hoping for Grisham to. The point is, there's a lot of hopium here. There's a lot of hope. I do think it. This is really interesting to me because I mean, is Volpe injured by the way? Is he on the
Yes,
IL?
he
Is that
is.
why?
He's
Okay,
hurt.
because I was gonna say they didn't even put him on the bench, so I'm like they must have put him on the IL. Um, look, the bench is what it is. It's not really inspiring, but the Yankees led the league, I think, in home runs last year, and or if not, they were like really close to hitting the top of home runs. I'll double check that, mainly because of Aaron Judge. And at the end of it, they're just going to need to do that again, right? That's what they want. They want to hit a lot of home runs and hope that they beat the crap out of you with their hitting.
Yeah, honestly, I if I was a Yankee fan, I would be legitimately worried. You had IKF, former Yankee, publicly say that they were excited to see the Yankees beat the Red Sox because they thought the Yankees would be an easier team to beat. Everybody's just a year older. Trent Grisham, since Luke's not here, we can talk a little bit more honestly about it. Only had one like year that you're like, wow, what a player. You
Yeah,
obviously
I think you got regression coming from Grisham and Bellinger, in my
even
opinion.
if he still has a good year, the chances of him repeating that are slim to none. Cody Bellinger is still Cody Bellinger. I'm not that worried about him. Ben Rice, I like Ben Rice. Think he's a good player. John Carlos Stanton is 36 years old and hurt all the time. Jazz Chisholm, interesting player. I like him a lot. He's a bit of a head case. Honestly, I think that the Yankees do kind of need someone like that.
I
It's
think
very
this is a career
anti-Yankee
year for
culture.
Jazz.
Yeah,
I'm the high man on Jazz Chisholm.
I might be the only person in the world that likes Ryan McMahon, so there's that.
He's a
Jose,
good defender.
I think he's better at hitting than people give him credit for. That's all I'm saying. Uh, Jose Caballero, whatever. He couldn't beat out Volpe when Volpe was
I like Caballero for what
healthy.
it's worth,
So
for what he is. You're like, I think he's a versatile defender. He steals a lot of bases, and he's probably more useful offensively right now than Anthony Volpe.
I
But
like Caballero as like your utility guy.
yes,
yeah. And then for catcher, you have Austin Wells, who I don't know, he's okay, I guess.
Austin Wells is good. No, we like Austin Wells. It's just the thing is that they didn't add anything new, and this is a team that needed some more. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, on the pitching side, you have the pitching side up too, right?
I
You know,
do. I want to make one more point. on before. Do you guys notice anyone missing there?
Well, Volpe, but he's hurt.
Oh, he's hurt, and we've already discussed that. Anyone that has been mentioned yet?
Oh, Jason Dominguez.
What happened to the Martian?
I don't buy this this roster resource projected lineup because I don't believe there's any way you can not have him on the major league lineup to start the year. I mean,
but where is he going to play? He sucks at the outfield.
Okay, you move Cody Bellinger to first base and you play him in left field.
Where does Ben Rice play? Stanton
is going to play like 32 games.
There is some
okay, but in the beginning of the season, Giancarlo Stanton
is going to get hurt in spring training.
No, I agree with you that Jason Dominguez question is an interesting one because the big future of the Yankees was supposed to be Dominguez alongside Volpe, alongside Aaron Judge, right? And now while the move has changed to Ben Rice being a guy of the future, and maybe Austin Wells because he's a good serviceable catcher, and there's no reason to hate on him in my opinion. And Ben Rice has really elite power potential, and he can do some special things. Cool. The fact that the banners were hung on Dominguez and Volpe, and we don't even know what we're going to get out of Volpe. We thought the Yankees were going to try to acquire a bona fide shortstop because if we're being fair, I agree with Ash. Jose Caballero is your utility guy, is an elite utility guy. Jose Caballero is your starting shortstop is not a move you want to make if you're the New York Yankees. You want, and you look at the bench. I mean, Oswaldo Cabrera has been a consistently under average hitter. Right, and Ahmed Rosario, who I want to say nice things about because I remember him as a former Mets prospect, and he was a nice person, is a also subpar hitter at times, and it kind of fulfills the same role that Oswaldo Cabrera does off the bench. So
nice.
You want to go ahead and say that Ahmed Rosario is going to be your utility guy or backup there. He's splitting arguably with Ryan McMahon, because according to this image, they think Ryan McMahon and Ahmed Rosario are going to platoon, which is psychotic. Because that's also another crazy thing. Like, if your bottom of the lineup is Ryan McMahon and Ahmed Rosario platooning, and Jose Caballero is starting shortstop, right? I mean, something's got to be changed here somehow, and that's
over
not
1,000 games at the big league level. Ryan McMahon has a career WRC plus of 89. That doesn't cut it for a starting third baseman on a contending ball club.
No, it's worrisome. And I mean, he plays good defense fine, but it's sort of like the idea of like it's why the Mets were afraid of, let's say, running out Tyrone Taylor. Right? Tyrone Taylor plays good defense, but is he a guy you want in the bottom of your lineup who's a subpar hitter at the end of the day? No, it caused the Mets a lot of problems. And you've got to expect a level of regression from Grisham and Bellinger, and maybe even Judge. Dare I say it? Maybe even Judge, just because of the fact that he is still dealing with injuries. He dealt with injuries last year. He is getting older and supports a very, very like huge frame on his body, and like he's
playing in the World Baseball Classic.
I'd root for Aaron Judge just because baseball is better when Aaron Judge is good. I say nice things about Aaron Judge, even though he's a Yankee. I don't want to see him decline, but it happens to everybody. I just feel like there is a lot here that is left unanswered. And I mean, you mentioned the big question, no Jason Dominguez. I mean, it's weird, man. The Martian was supposed to be the next big thing, and a roster resource isn't God. We know that, but at the end of the day, it is a little bit weird to not even see him,
especially in February.
Yeah, thrown up here. I mean, I know that you can't move out of Stanton's contract. I know he's going to get hurt, and Dominguez will get on there, but he should be at least on the bench then, right? I mean, like Is he also on the IL on this list, by the way, or do they have him in AAA?
They have him on AAA.
They have him in AAA?
Yeah.
So they have.
I just can't see that. Like,
I don't know if I agree
can't
with that either. And I can't imagine Luke saying that makes sense either, that they're going to option him down to AAA and start him down there.
Yeah, but
these guys are going to shuffle around. Like, Bellinger's going to play some first base. Ben Rice is going to catch now and then. Some of these guys are going to DH. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are moving parts
roster,
here.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that makes me crazy, but I think he's got to make that major league roster.
Well, with that in mind, we have the Yankees pitching here. I mean, listen, the starters are good. So you got some guys that are hurt. They're going to come back and fill some of those spots, make it even stronger. The bullpen, I see Paul Blackburn's name. That's all I got to say.
Cade Winquist was their Rule 5 pick, so he'll probably make the roster. Yarborough's a swingman, so he's nothing special. Blackburn, also nothing special. Jake Bird, former closer, also really nothing special. But they'll piece their bullpen together. They'll make it work. They're the Yankees, and the tail end of their bullpen is really strong. I do like their rotation. Of course, that's not giving credence to the fact that I think on the IL in this image are Clark Smith, Carlos Rodon, and Garrett Cole, right? So, this is not the. And I love Ryan Weathers. I think Ryan Weathers was a brilliant acquisition by the Yankees. They basically paid nothing for him. And so, a month or so in, you might be looking at a rotation. Well, actually, Garrett Cole, I think, is closer to midseason. But for the home stretch, you could have Max Fried, Cam Schlittler, Garrett Cole, Will Warren, and Ryan Weathers. And I believe Luis Gill has options, so you can send him down if need be. All things together, I mean, that is a serviceable rotation. So the rotation is not the problem. They do have some
I think that
prospects.
rotation's good.
Yeah, I actually when they got Ryan Weathers for the price that they did, I was like, damn, that's a good deal for the Yankees. And I
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Weathers,
right
when he stayed healthy, he's been really good the last 2 years. Like, the problem is he can't stay on the mound.
Correct. So, and I feel like they have the depth to work that out because if Weathers can hold it up until Rodon was still pretty good for them when healthy, and Garrett Cole, I mean, we'll see. Obviously, because he's coming back off the injury, but the hope is that he's going to capture some of the level of ace level pitching that he's been able to provide before. But it feels like this is a team that feels like they're on their last legs. I
I
mean, the
agree
big
with that,
acquisition,
100%.
they just kind of have decided we're going to see if it can figure it out and create some Yankee magic. But outside of that, I mean, we're
And the
not going to
problem
make any
with that,
big moves in.
the problem with that, you have a lot of big salaries here. So if the worst possible outcome comes, you're not going to be able to move these guys that are in their mid to late 30s with a big contract. Like, this isn't a team that can rebuild easily if the worst possible outcome comes.
No, and they have some options that I like. I mean, I know that they traded from some utility guys and Max Schumann, fine. Paul DeJong, fine. You have those pieces there that can complement a full lineup, right? But it doesn't. The bottom of the lineup doesn't inspire confidence to me. I feel more confident in their pitching, very similar to the Mets, because I think in AAA they also have Elmer Rodriguez, who's not going by Elmer Rodriguez Cruz anymore. I learned mid off season, he's now just Elmer Rodriguez. They got Oswaldo Bido as depth. Chase Hampton's injured, he'll be back. Dom Hamill, former Met, is in there. They'll figure it out. Ben Hess. They like their pitching, and I like it too. Even with the older age of Cole and things like that, I mean, Max Fried, Cam Schlittler, Garrett Cole in the playoffs, even Fried and Schlittler and Weathers can win you some good games in the playoffs if they're healthy. So I'm cool with what's going on in terms of their rotation. I just
Where the
think
hell
that
have you been, Ed?
I just think it comes down to the fact that they need to figure out what's going on. I mean, Spencer Jones is also another thing. He was supposed to be a big deal, but I am not a Spencer Jones guy, and a lot of the MLB is not a Spencer Jones guy. So
that guy is nothing.
And the thing
he's a
is,
non-asset to me.
Even if you're like, oh, Spencer Jones is our guy, right? What are we doing? Who are we getting rid of? Because as Ashley alluded to, you're not moving off Stanton. You're not benching one of the guys with a contract like that. And you're not moving Stanton, right? So you kind of have to play him. And Spencer Jones ain't playing third base. And you kind of need the DH spot for Stanton because, yeah, he can play the outfield a little bit, but it's not really a thing that's an option. So you've kind of stuck yourself into a corner where maybe Dominguez can hit, but you don't know where to play him. Maybe Spencer Jones can hit, but you don't know where to play him. Right? Ben Rice.
That's the guy they should be trading.
I wish they would have, honestly, but it's better for me.
I mean, he's got a 19.2 swinging strike rate. There's nobody in Major League Baseball that's any good with that kind of swinging strike rate.
I think he's just hanging on that potential, man. I don't think he's going to be. And I think maybe he has like one of those like Aristides, like Aquino runs where he comes up, hits a whole bunch of home runs, and then the league adjusts to him. And he bats like under 200 because he's striking out all the goddamn time. I'm sure the power's there. The power's real. I get it, but he doesn't make enough contact for me to sit there and think this is going to be a guy who's going to have a sustained major league career. But again, these are even guys you have right now that can hit are almost positionless. Like, yes, Cody Bellinger's super versatile, but Stanton, if healthy's got a DH. Ben Rice is limited to first base, catcher, or DH. Right, it's like you can't just put a whole bunch of guys who can hit the home run and hope they can field like it's MLB The Show. It doesn't work that way.
The Yankees have the opposite problem with the Mets that the Mets do. I mean, look. We talked about it in depth. The Mets have so much rotation, positional versatility they can do. Almost anyone in the infield can play almost any position. Um, the Yankees, it's pretty much set, besides Bellinger and Ben Rice, it's pretty much set in stone. Like
Yeah,
the only
this
thing
is
you
a
could really
disaster
clear
waiting
up
to happen, in my opinion.
is like Ash. Basically, Ash already said it. Basically, just wait for John Carlos Stanton to get hurt, and then you can move some pieces around. But there's it's it's not good. Rami, I think you're right. They're hoping that they can put it together for
I
one
think
last run.
that's what I
Like
see. Right? I mean, how can you not see anything? The fact that they didn't acquire anything besides Weathers and it was because he was dirt cheap, right?
yeah,
They just sat there and said, let's see if we can figure it out while we watch the Orioles and the Red Sox
and the
and the
Blue Jays
Jays get better. I don't
In
know
my
what the hell the
opinion,
Rays are doing.
that actually tells you a lot. It tells me that their front office is worried about the potential outcome of this team. Like they couldn't just blow it up,
Correct. They
but
can't
at the
blow it
same
up
time, they didn't spend a lot of money to go get guys either.
because they're afraid that if they add and they still get thwomped by the Blue Jays, that they
Well,
wasted
this
money.
team could miss the playoffs in a
It's
scenario.
very possible that Aaron Judge could be in contention for MVP and this team could miss the playoffs.
I mean, Trent Grisham. If you had to make me bet, I would bet that he's the guy that's 2024 and earlier in his career more than he's 2025. Trent Grisham.
Shocking.
I mean,
I'm
Cody
stunned
Bellinger
by
has been
that
up and down
development.
throughout his career.
Yes. Now, this is true. Yeah, there's a lot of question marks here.
Giancarlo Stanton, not playing 100 games.
And even if they can hit again, because they led the league in home runs last year and they led the league in runs scored, they can't field. And they didn't do anything to address that besides getting a guys who can put a glove and play multiple positions, but it's still the same thing. This isn't a defensively sound lineup because there are games where you're going to want to get Judge in his DH2 to preserve his health, and then what happens? You don't have Stanton to go out there at DH, so you're putting Caballero in right field maybe? It doesn't. It's going to be a tough one to figure out what exactly is going on with this team, and I think some of their non-roster invitees have been really fun. They got Yanquiel Fernandez, and like I get it, I respect their little things that they're doing, but you're not moving like the New York Yankees anymore. You are moving like a team that sees the end of your line, and you see the rest of your division getting better, getting younger. Right? I mean, the Red Sox may not contend in the way the Blue Jays do this year, but Mayer's right there. Christian Campbell's still around. Roman Anthony was on the main roster. You got young pitching too. The Red Sox are building their version of a contender, and it's not going to be an easy slog in that division. And in the AL overall, they may not make the playoffs. And
This team reminds me of the late 2000s Philadelphia Phillies.
when they couldn't blow it up, yeah, like the post
The Chase Utley and
Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, all those guys that got the World Series, but after that they could never put it together again. They tried,
and they just kept holding on with those same guys.
but they're doing it right now too. To speak about the Phillies right now, they're still doing it with the same guys. But I digress. It seems to be like
not
a
all
thing
the
going
same
on.
guys.
But I agree with you. Like I do think that it's just this team didn't win the World Series. They made it to the World Series, but they didn't win. But they're falling apart at the seams in that regard, and I'd be nervous. I'd be nervous about the direction of the team. I'd be nervous about their willingness to spend or commit to a direction because they have enough talent to field a contender, but they didn't add enough to fortify it. And maybe that's it, where they're like, you know what, maybe the Dodgers will beat everybody anyway. We're just gonna like toil away in our own division. But I feel like you lose the division of the Blue Jays again, just mentally, it's just not Yankee esque. It's not the teams that I've come to think about as the evil empire for so long growing up as a person.
And like how we talked about how the Mets have a lot of young guys in the minors that you if you wanted to, you could make a trade for. Who do the Yankees have in their minor league system?
They have guys they need to count on. I talked about Elmer Rodriguez Cruz, but or Elmer Rodriguez rather again, they're gonna need him, right? And if you move Spencer Jones, yes, like that's a great thing. Like I think you should move Spencer Jones, but it may not net you everything that you
You
need.
should have moved Spencer Jones 2 years ago.
Yeah, I do think that, and I feel like the Yankees know that. I feel like they know they're just trying to get someone to buy in the hype. But at the end of it, I mean, they are not super flush I know Lagrange is really good. Carlos Lagrange, he's a guy that you could move, and he's a little further out.
Bryce
People like Ben
Cunningham's a
Hess,
pitcher I like.
yeah, and yeah, Cunningham and Lagrange, I know people like too. I know some people like Hampton. I know some like Lelaine really far out, and of course George
Hampton
Lombard.
has barely pitched the last 2 years, so I don't know
I
how
don't know
much.
either. And I assume they're not going to move Lombard because they expect him to take over at short because Volpe hasn't worked out. So I don't think they're moving Lombard. I don't think they're moving Elmer Rodriguez, right? Maybe you
And
move Spencer Jones.
Lombard to me is, what I get frustrated about, and we're kind of going on a prospect rant here, but Travis Bazzana actually
Hmm.
had a better year at the plate than George Lombard did. And in all the rankings, Travis Bazzana
And
has
on it's
fallen like 20, 30 points,
under, yeah,
while
and they left
Lombard's gone up.
Lombard. Yeah, and it drove me nuts. I've talked about this. I'm like, listen, when people talk about like big market and stuff like that, I completely get it because Travis Bazzana should still be a solid prospect. Fine, I understand demoting him because he didn't do what you thought he was going to do out of college. I know some people said maybe 65 hit tool. He didn't hit the lofty expectations. Fine. But George Lombard was being touted as like the Yankees' #1 prospect. This is a guy, oh my God, top shortstop prospect, but he didn't have as good a year as Bazana, and you guys are still trying to force him down our throats. I agree. I do think this
And
is kind of a
Lombard is
Yankee bias
rising
thing.
through the ranks.
Yeah, and I think it's a Yankee bias thing. I don't roster Lombard in any of my leagues. I mean, I'm not talking about fantasy here. We're not going to get too. I agree with you, Ash, but Lombard's not a guy that I would be targeting. But I assume the Yankees think he'll take over at shortstop, which is fine. But again, to Peter's point, you can't move him, right? You can't move Lombard. You can't move Elmer Rodriguez because you're going to need them to be versatile players for you and useful pieces. So, yes, you can make moves like the Ryan Weathers deal. And I think that's also part of why they didn't make these deals because the Mets had the prospect capital and the extra depth to make moves like Luis Robert and Freddie Peralta. Right? We gave away, and I'll talk about the Luis Robert thing again later when we close up for the night soon. But they made moves that were with available depth that didn't really hurt them that much. I mean, at the end of the day, Tong and Scott are still here, right? Their top prospect, Carson Bench, still here. Ryan Clifford, still here, right? I mean, Jet Williams was a
And
top
the core
prospect,
is
and I
young.
respect him. But yeah, they figured it out. They got that stuff done, so I got to give them credit for that, right? I mean, you got Luis Robert Jr. for Luis Angel Acuna, pretty much.
Oh, speaking of Luis Angel Acuna, have you guys seen this madness with Chris Getz apparently not even knowing a thing about him? Like
Yes,
four
I
times
was
now
gonna
he's
go.
called him a switch hitter.
I was
A
gonna go
David
into.
Stearns masterclass.
I was gonna go into our final takes if we do, unless you guys have something else to bring up here, because that was gonna be part of my final take. I did
Yeah,
want to bring.
Well, I
we
do
can go
need
to
to. I
final
do
six.
think we need to give the Red Storm some love here. So if
Yes,
you
that's
want to
fair.
pivot to that
That's
before we go to
actually
last
very
take,
fair. The Knicks also won tonight too, which are they're figuring their things out. But yeah, let's talk about the Red Storm for a second.
I mean, Friday night, these guys had one of the biggest wins that they've had that program has had in decades. I talked about like 20 to 30 years of basically nothing prior to Rick Pitino coming in there and just taking this team by storm. I mean, Zuby Ejiofor on Friday night, that guy can ball. I mean, I want that guy on my team in the NBA next year. Like this guy, I mean, he went for 21 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 blocks. I mean, this guy was doing everything for St. John's on Friday night. They've now won 10 in a row. You're talking about a team with only one loss in the Big East. The bracketology on ESPN came out, I want to say yesterday, and had them, picked as a 5 seed. This is a team that's just going to keep rising, in my
Yeah,
opinion. I mean, you're looking at a 3 seed team to me.
we talked about this. I mean, bracket wise, I think one of the biggest things that come out of this, if they make this win, they could be a top 4 team, and that's just huge, right? Because you ended the Huskies, what I think was an 18-game winning streak. So you
Yeah.
stop a Huskies team on an 18-game winning streak, right? You don't face a hangover. You're going to face Xavier in overtime, beat them, keep the momentum going. So right now, you look like world beaters right now. You are figuring this out. St. John's is an actual threat, and they have to be talked about as a top 4 seed. And like I said, I think it's a big thing. Like, you win that big game. There was no hangover. You went into an overtime win here against Xavier. That's huge. Like, this is a team that's doing all the right things, saying all the right things. Credit to the man in charge, right, for Rick Pitino. I got to be honest. I mean, this is definitely the lines are being shown here about what he has done for this squad and what he's done for these guys. They believe in him, and I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. I mean, and that's under the lights of the Garden on Friday night too. Like that was no small time game. That's a
I mean,
big
that was a
deal.
big time college basketball game. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you had two heavyweights going in there and just slugging it out. St. John's gets the win, and I know like there were a lot of eye rolls on Monday night as they kind of squeaked it out against Xavier. But you're coming off of such an emotional charged win on Friday
No, I'm
night
just
that it's
glad they
tough.
won. Yeah,
Well,
like
and
listen, you took the
then you
win.
had the Patino versus Patino because Rick's son is the coach at Xavier, so you had that whole dynamic to deal with. So
Hmm.
I'm not too worried about that win being in overtime.
No, I think it's a good thing because for me, the fear I have is just naturally you play the biggest game you've had all season. There's an emotional hangover. There's a built-in excuse, right? It's very easy to say, "Hey, look, your next game you just drop it because you didn't figure it out." And they found a way to win. So I think they're looking up. The arrow is pointing very much up for St. John's, and I'm kind of impressed because I want to see how far it goes. I mean, they're right in
We
my
got to get you
backyard.
over there to a game, Ram.
No, yeah, they're right in my backyard. I talk about it a lot. I'd be more than happy to go over there and just kind of enjoy the crowd. And I gotta give them their respect. I do think it's fair to say like they are a force right now, and it's fun to see because Queens doesn't have much to hang on to in terms of college sports. I mean, if we're being honest, they're just a lot more involved in the Knicks and the Mets than they are with any kind of college stuff because the college culture is very different up here when you have like the forces of the Knicks and the Mets and the Yankees and not the Nets, but the Knicks and the Mets and the Yankees like around here to kind of keep you busy in terms of baseball and basketball for those sports. And football, of course, it's the same way. So when the Red Storm are good, Queens does get excited about it because they are a passionate fan base, a la the teams that they root for normally, and they're excited about it. So it's fun. It's real fun down here.
Well, and it's kind of cool having Patino on the sidelines, a New York born and bred guy. I mean, he grew up just a few miles from campus there in Queens. So like that to me is a cool part of the story that I don't think is getting enough discussion nationally. It is that he's winding down his Hall of Fame career in the city that he grew up in, coaching a big time program now. It's just a cool story.
No, I mean, and this is a guy. I mean, he's still winding down the Hall of Fame career, and I think that's what's crazy about it. Where like some people might have thought this is just his like retirement plan type of thing, or he wouldn't put in the same effort. It's very clearly quite the opposite. You know, he's putting his heart into what he's doing here, and they are very much enjoying it. They're having fun. He's still got some time here, and I like it. And I do think, speaking of Zuby and some of the guys, it's helping their draft stock too because these are guys that you're going to see now talked about. I mean, the higher that St. John's goes, you're going to talk about seeing him as like a top 15 pick, if anything like that. And that's a big deal because traditional playing centers like that don't necessarily see the same love as like talented guards and things like
But he can
that.
step out a little bit too. I mean, you're talking
Hmm.
about a guy that shoots around 30% from three. So
Viable, it could work in certain schemes. It'll work. So I think it's awesome. I'm having fun watching it, and I do think it's fair to give them their credit because we did talk about Friday was going to be the biggest game for them in a while, and they showed up and they won. So good for them.
Get that man into Mike Brown's Princeton offense.
Listen,
nobody cares about Mike Brown.
Mike
Sorry,
Brown's
Ram.
Princeton offense is working fine. The Knicks bounced back and won, and I think beat the
I was
76ers by like
underwhelmed by that
40. They beat
decision.
them by like 40 tonight, though. I think they finished the game 138-89 tonight against the 76ers. So they when they win big, and it's the largest point margin they've ever had against the 76ers. So I'm more upset about the fact they dropped the Pacers game on yesterday, but I don't want to complain about that because that's going to take way too long. And honestly, it's not even going to matter in a week, so I shouldn't be mad about it as mad as I am. It just annoys me like a mosquito. So we'll deal with it. But the Knicks are still alive and well, and I believe are still the 2 seed in the NBA Eastern Conference right now. Let me not. No, they're tied with the Celtics, so the Celtics are there. So they're the 3 seed. But we'll deal. I'm not going to complain about the Knicks right now. They should have beat the Pacers in overtime. They annoy the crap out of me. But they're still a good team, and they're still going to figure things out. So I won't bitch too much about the Knicks because that's going to push us to like the 2 hour mark, and I'm not going to hold anybody hostage for that.
All right. Well, let's go around and give our final takes. Ram, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I because we mentioned it, and I think it's hilarious. So I had to talk about it because I think this is insane. You know, Chris, I'm gonna switch over the image here. Let me get this back over, and we're gonna pull up the one of the. There we go. So, you know, Chris Gatz, former player, GM over here, he has multiple times referred to Luis Angel Acuna as a switch hitter, and this is kind of making the rounds because people are realizing that it feels like Chris Gatz doesn't even know who he traded for. I mean, Luis Angel Acuna is a right-handed hitter. He's not a switch hitter. And so it's one of those things where I I don't know how to react because I feel like I deal with these guys like on a fantasy level. Like somebody be like, oh, that's not the prospect I thought, you know? You are being paid millions of dollars. You know, and it's not even like a slip of the tongue where we can just go ahead and say, hey, yeah, you messed up. Like, because I make like Freudian slips and slips of the tongue all the time. But you have four times like gone out of your way to call him a switch hitter, and he has not. I mean, in the sense that so far in the majors he has sucked from both sides of the plate. Yeah, he's a switch hitter, but I do feel weird about this because I mean that's a major league jam. I don't know how people feel about it, but White Sox fans are not very happy about the fact that Chris Getz is out there calling a guy a switch hitter who is not a switch hitter.
Who knows? Maybe the Pope did some divine intervention and he's going to become a switch hitter now. So
If we find out he's like switch hitting, like he's been doing it in secret, and he just comes out and we're all just stupid, I'm gonna own up to it. I will absolutely eat crow. But as of right now, I don't know if he knows who he traded for.
Ram, what do you got? Or Ram, uh, Peter, what do you got
I
for
can do
us?
the whole thing again, but it's not
Yeah,
gonna sound as fun.
I misspoke.
It's all good.
It's all right, Chris
So,
Getz. We forgive you.
listen, if anything, I'm glad that I have an executive of my favorite baseball team that is not above lying to make trades. Like, I like that. But speaking of um, our current GM and, just kind of the general gist of things, um, obviously in the beginning of the offseason, we had a lot of Mets fans upset, myself and Ram included in that. However, some fans took it farther than others. Um, and around Twitter, I saw it floating around that the Mets were better off under the old ownership than the current ownership. Um, and I'm gonna go out as far as a limb as to say that is the stupidest fucking take I've ever heard in my entire life. Um, it was absolutely miserable with those Wilpons. They were the worst. Um, like like what a dumb take, and it just to kind of show how good David Stearns is. Yes, he did sign this guy in 2024, but he did pretty quickly cut him. Uh, anyone remember a guy named Zach Short? Anybody?
Yes.
Ram? Yes.
Utility infielder, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Uh, so if we think about that in this year's terms, this year's Zach Short is MJ Melendez. Much better upgrade. Much better upgrade.
That was a great bench signing, by the way.
Yes,
Huge.
I do
Honestly,
think it was a brilliant signing.
And just my last point, and this is more of a dig than a point. Does anyone know where Zach Short signed for this year? It was a non-roster invite. Anyone?
I do.
All right, Ram, don't say it. Ash, I want you to guess.
I have no idea.
Take a guess.
I don't know.
Just
The Yankees.
Guess. You are correct, sir.
The Yankees would be correct.
Too bad Luke's not here.
He would have also. He might not have known. Actually, we don't know. Zach Short just kind of appeared in the Yankees like locker room, and they just let it happen. Ash, what do you have for us?
Well, we have no Rangers, Islanders, or Devils news right now because the NHL is on their Olympic break right now, which I am super excited about. The Olympic Games are always some of my favorite times. I shouldn't say of the year because it's only every couple of years that you get either the summer or winter games. I actually like the winter games more than I like the summer, so this is awesome. The United States men's hockey team takes the ice for the first time tomorrow against Latvia. And guys, I cannot wait to be able to watch that game and cheer our boys on. The United States has a very good team. By the way, the women's hockey team won and demolished Canada in the game last night. So that was awesome to see because typically those are the two best teams in all of the sport. The gold medal game will likely come down between the United States women and the Canadian women, and likely we may see another repeat of that on the men's side as well down the road. So I'm excited to see Austin Matthews and all these guys for the U.S. take the ice tomorrow. And the Olympics are such an opportunity for us as a country, whether you're, conservative or more on the liberal side, whatever side you are politically, just throw all that shit out the window and let's come together and root this country on because it's the greatest country in the world, regardless of your personal philosophies. Come together, enjoy the games, talk to each other, and just let's talk some shit about Canada. Let's go beat Canada in the Olympics on the ice.
Maybe that's what Nick Castellanos said. Maybe he's rooting for Canada in the Olympics, and that's why the Phillies are jettisoning him from the team. I was thinking
Forgot about
about it
Nick.
for a long time. That might have been what he said. And if any of you know what Nick Castellanos said to get himself ejected from the Phillies, please let us know. I'd love to know. I really, really want to know in that locker room what he said.
The ongoing rumor is that he thinks drinking raw milk is stupid.
I also think drinking raw milk is stupid, and I do want to say, Nick Castellanos, as I sign off here for the night, if you said something negative about Jason Wirth's racehorse and the fact that he's an idiot, I support you. I have your back. If you went out there and you talk trash about Jason Wirth and the Phillies and stuff like that, don't worry, I've got your back. I also don't drink raw milk. So,
Now
anyway,
you have an
from
enemy with Bryce Harper.
That's great. So for three of us here tonight, myself, Peter, and Ash, who do not drink or promote raw milk, we'll be back next week,
Milk's
hopefully with
disgusting.
Luke. Raw milk is even disgustinger, and that's not even a word. Hopefully Luke is back next week so he can defend the Yankees and we can make fun of him. And we'll be back here at the same time otherwise at 10:30 on Wednesdays. Thank you all for tuning in. You know the deal. TheBestDamnSports.com. Links to our YouTube and following us is free, and we appreciate it. We will see you again in a week. Have a good night. Take care.